والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. ألم نشرح لك صدرك فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
Sister Zahra. Sister Zahra here? Oh, okay. We'll have a manqabat by Brother Mushtaba, and then after that we'll have member inshallah. Oh, she's here.
صلوات. سر میخوریم از پشت رنگین کمون، سر بازی میکنیم تو باغچه آسمون. پرنده های شاخ گل میارن، وقتی که اومدین شما پیش پاتون میذارن. با از نازنینتون بلون ما هوا میره، بوی گلای نرگسش سوی فرشته ها میره. توی آقای مهربون توی امام خوبی، تو آسمون قلب ما خورشید بی غروبی. ابرای سرد و تیره رو کنار زدیم با شادی، تو با دعا تراوت و به آسمون ها دادی. با هم تماشا میکنیم مزرعه ستاره، روی زمین هرچی گله بوی شماره داره. آی دخترا آی پسرا دعا کنیم پیش خدا، ابرای سیاه کنار بره تموم بشه انتظار ما. آی دخترا آی پسرا دعا کنیم پیش خدا، ابرای سیاه کنار بره تموم بشه انتظار ما. پیغمبر اکرم میفرمایند بهترین عبادت امت من انتظار فرج باشد. صلوات.
Please, you said a loud salawat for Brother Mahdi and Sister Zahra.
ولادت با سعادت بی دو عالم بی زینب کبرا سلام الله علیها را به پیشگاه بقیت الله اعظم عجل الله تعالی فرجه شریف و به شما مؤمنین مؤمنات و تمام مؤمنین مؤمنات عالم تبریک و تهنیت میگم برای سلامتی خودتان، خانواده‌تان، سلامتی و ظهور آقای امام زمان. بلند صلوات. اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. یا رحمان یا رحیم. ای کریم که از خزانه غیب گبر و ترسا وظیفه خور داری، دوستان را کجا کنی محروم، تو که بر دشمنان نظر داری. اشرف انبیا رسول الله این چنین گفت در گوا بگا، زینو زینو مجالسکم به مدیح علی ولی الله. علی جان دم از محبت تو زنیم تا دم ابد، ما عاشق لقای تویم یا علی مدد. خواهیم که در دو وقت به فریاد ما رسی، اول دم ممات و دویم در ته لحد. مرا که نطقم به مدح حیدر مثال بلبل شده است گویا، ز عشق آن شه همیشه بر سر ازار شورم بود به ارجا، به غیر وصف علی نگویم به جز ولای علی نجویم، ره ثنایش همیشه پویم کتاب مدحش نمایم انشاءالله. ز دلربایی نیکوزاری فکنده مهرش به دل شراری، که همچو بلبل به با وصف ذاتش گشایم او را علی امام و علی رهبر علی شاه و علی سرور علی یار و علی یاور علی ملجا علی ملجا علی شفیع گناب معشر علی قسیم جنان و سقیر علی وسی نبی ادهر علی ولی خدای یکتا علی کریم و علی مکرم علی عظیم و علی معظم علی قدیم و علی مقدم علی صفی و علی مصفا علی که اعلا بود صفاتش علی والا خجست ذاتش علی که بهتر ز ممکناتش نمود خلقت کریم دانا بود نیکوتر ز هر نیکوی بود فزونتر هر آنچه گویی و هر چی بینی ز هر کی جویی ندیده مثلش کسی به دنیا به کوی عشقش هر آن کی عاشق محبتی و هر آن کی لایق نهاده سر را مثال وامق بریده دل را ز عشق عذرا به چاه مهرش چو ماه کنعان فتاده در سو هزار خوبان نگاه لطفش نموده شایاب اربلیت چو سر زلیخا علی جان اگرچه یاران بود فراوان مرا دو چشمم سوی ثنا خوان شوم فدای لبان آنان که در ثنای علی گویم بگو بیاران به مشک و کافور کنند ثبتین کلام مسرور که برده سبقت ز ماه و از خوار به مدح ذات علی اعلا بگو بیاران به مشک و کافور کنن ثبتین کلام مسرور که برده سبق از ماه و از خوار به مدح ذات علی اعلا دریاب خستگان غمت راز حادثات ای دستگیر شاه و گدا پیر و جوان یا علی مدد ورد ما این است دائم الاوقات که به زهرا گل گلزار محمد بلند صلوات.
Congratulations to all of you on this auspicious occasion of the birth anniversary of Sayyida Zainab Salamullahi alayha. We'll have lecture. After lecture, inshallah, we'll have cake cutting. After cake cutting, we'll have dinner, inshallah. So please help me welcome Dr. Shakil Virji, our dear respected brother, Dr. Shakil Virji, to the member with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتاب مبين والقرآن المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن يعمل من الصالحين من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فأولئك يدخلون الجنة ولا يظلمون نقيرا صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, congratulations to everybody on this auspicious occasion of the wiladat of Sayyida Zainab Salamullahi alayha. Indeed, she was and continues to be a person that should be a role model for all of us, especially the women in our community. And inshallah, we will try and see how and what are her qualifications for her to be the role model for all of us. The elections finally are over. As you can see, that if you had to go and you were watching throughout this whole process that was occurring, you were seeing that people were doing all these polls and they were analyzing the minds of the people and they were coming out with these results that so-and-so is going to win because of this and so-and-so is going to win because of that, and the polls are very close. And when Tuesday night came about, we found that things were completely different from whatever these polls were saying. They were completely different. And when you look at these polls and the arguments that were being made, what were some of the biggest concerns that people had? They had this thing about rights of people. You know, the rights of the black people, the rights of the Palestinians, the rights of people who are inclined sexually in a different way, women's rights, and the rights of the black people. In this debate of rights of this and rights of that, a lot of things became very lost and focused on what is the absolute essential element for human survival and the progression of society in a harmonious and good way was completely lost. So today, in celebration of the wiladat of Sayyida Zainab, I'm going to try and inshallah shed some light in this whole idea about rights by highlighting something from this ayah of the Quran that I just cited from Surah An-Nisa, verse number 124. If you look at Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the rights of men and the rights of women and what are things that are in consideration in the event that there is death, in the event there is inheritance to be judged, in the event that there is a divorce, and so on and so forth. But then towards the end, or not towards the end, to the 3/4 of the way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and He cites this ayah. وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Putting everything aside, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that for those people who do amal salih, who do good deeds, who are righteous, وَهُوَ ذَكَرٌ أَوْ أُنْثَى, whether they are male or whether they are female, وَهُوَ يُؤْمِنٌ, that as long as they are believers, men or women, as long as they are doing good deeds and as long as they are believers, يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ, that they will enter paradise. وَلَا يُظْلِمُونَ نَقِيرًا, that not even the smallest amount of a peck on a date you know, the date groove, the date stone, if you see the little groove on that, there's not even that amount of zulm or injustice is going to be given to any one of them. Now, very simple ayah talks about equality of men and women, right? But there is something that, you know, when you read the Quran, you look at the translation of something and you look at what it is saying. And sometimes to understand Quran, you also look at what it is not saying and try and come out with the meaning of this. In talking about equality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said that وَمَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا, for those who are going, you know, for those people who are doing good deeds. God said that whether they are black or white, or whether they are this culture or that culture, whether they speak this language or that language, whether they are from the south or the north, He could have taken all of humanity and taken into consideration things that we as human beings look at differences between us and says, وَهُوَ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَيُدْخِلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ, that they will go into ayah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say that, because for Him, all these things, there is no differences in the human beings. Racial, there is no difference. In the languages, cultures, there is no difference. But He highlights one difference. The difference that He highlights is the difference between men and women. He's saying equal. At the end, they're both going to go to Jannah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is acknowledging that everything else is the same, but when it comes to your identification or your consideration of who is, you know, between men and women, while equality and just everything is there, they are different. They are not the same. And that is why He highlights this difference. You know, for those people who consider themselves feminists, equal rights for women, equal rights for women, equal. Yes, Quran is saying equal rights. Spiritually, men and women can go to the same extent, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at them in the same eye. But there is a difference, and this difference needs to be acknowledged. Just a simple of example. If you told, you know, women say, we should be in the army, you know, because we are equal and we should be in the army. Baba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created men with more stamina, with more strength, with a different makeup physically for a man to be able to handle what is required of being a soldier. Women are not equipped with that. That's how Allah has created you. And in the same manner, if you have the concept, for example, upbringing or taking care of a little child, yes, men can do it. It's not that they cannot do it, but they are not equipped with the patience, with that softness, with that empathy, like women are. So while they can do it, they will not be able to do justice to that little child, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has equipped a woman in a better way to deal with those types of things. So the fight for this equality and this feminism has lost its path because gender roles are not being considered. And now we come to Sayyidah Zainab. If you look at the khutbat, the speeches that Sayyidah Zainab gave in Sham and in Kufa, and the leadership role that she took after the Karbala. Many women say, oh, what a strong woman. Yes, she was strong. But was she a feminist? Was she this equal right fighter or whatever? No. She was a strong woman who was a humanitarian and a woman or a person who stood up against injustice and oppression. And when it comes to that, roles are sometimes, you know, become vague, and the strongest person, or when demanded, the person who is in the position to stand up for it needs to stand up, whether it is a man or a woman. But when it comes to other arguments, gender roles, my dear brothers and sisters, are very, 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 very important. Now, let's look at Sayyidah Zainab and try to identify and learn something about her. Because if one would ask me, a Muslim woman would ask me, which woman in the history of Islam should be my role model? without thinking, no-brainer, I would say Sayyidah Zainab. Without hesitation. And if you ask me, why not Sayyidah Fatima? Salamullahi alayha. I'd say, Baba, that is a high bar. Very difficult to achieve. She has also isma, there is ma'asumiyat. She's a ma'asuma. And not only that, my dear brothers and sisters, in terms of practical life and in practical history, Sayyidah Fatima salamu alayha, by most narrations, lived only 18 years. So what we need to learn from her is very, very limited in terms of practical life. But Sayyidah Zainab lived for 57 years. And she went through life like other normal women would. She grew up, she was orphaned at a very young age, okay, but she got married, she had children, she lived in Medina with her family, normal life was there. But then, narrations say that there was no description of Sayyidah Zainab physically until when her veils were taken off after the event of Karbala, because she was not a public figure. Nobody in public saw her. But she had a role in the back. Inshallah ta'ala, we will talk this. Now, let's look at the spiritual DNA of Sayyidah Zainab. Her grandmother, who was her grandmother? Sayyidah Fatima salamullahi alayha. Oh, sorry, not sorry. Sayyidah Khadija salamullahi alayha. An entrepreneur, a businesswoman. Let's look at where she's coming from. Her grandfather, our holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Okay. Her parents, Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayyidah Fatima salamullahi alayha. On her father's side, who do you have? You have Fatima bint Asad, who was like a mother figure to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And you had Hazrat Abu Talib, who was the protector of our Holy Prophet during the very early historical, during the beginning of the history of Islam. So this is her spiritual DNA. Brothers like Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain alayhi salam. In one narration, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam described Sayyidah Fatima as an alima ghair muallima, that she was knowledgeable without having actually had a formal teacher to teach her anything. In her childhood, there is a narration that when she was small, she was sitting with her father, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and they were having a discussion. And Sayyidah Zainab asks her father, says, "Oh father, who do you love more, me or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?" So Imam Ali alayhi salam responds to him, "Of course, both of you." So Sayyidah Zainab says, in your heart, how can you have space for two? For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your daughter. So Imam Ali alayhi salam smiled and said, you answer it. This is as a child, they are having this discussion. So Sayyidah Zainab turns to Imam Ali alayhi salam and she says that your love for Allah creates the empathy and the love for you, for me. And that is why there is only that space for Allah and empathy, for me. The insight that she has as a child after, in that environment that she was living in, suggests very highly that it was not only education that Sayyidah Zainab had, she had very deep insight and she was a very thoughtful woman. Who narrated the khutbah fadakiyah, the khutbah that Sayyidah Fatima salamullahi alayha delivered in the court in front of Abu Bakr after the land of Fadak was taken away? We all know that Bibi Fatima went to that and she delivered this khutbah arguing her case, to the leaders at that time. She went there and she said that, but how did you and I come to know about what Sayyidah Fatima told, in that court? Who narrated it? Sayyidah Zainab. Sayyidah Zainab is the narrator of this khutbah fadakiyah. Now, how old was she when Bibi Fatima went to the court and delivered this khutbah? At the most, she was about 7 or 8 years old. She not only memorized this khutbah of Bibi Fatima. She, she had a deep understanding of what she was saying. And only then are you able to bring this back and you are able to deliver it, to the people. So even at that young age, Bibi Fatima, Sayyidah Zainab, had this ability to remember, this thing. As she grew up, she became a teacher of the women in Medina. Okay, she was, the women of Medina were invited, and she was basically teaching them, Quran and Hadith and whatever was there, to be taught because of the influence that she had. And it is narration said that the women of Medina were very hesitant to go to these classes of Sayyidah Zainab. Very hesitant to go there because it was not in their culture for women to become educated. That was not the culture of the people of Arabia at that time, but it was the culture of Islam. That knowledge needs to be imparted to everyone. Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That whether they are men or whether they are women, education and knowledge is extremely important. So Sayyidah Zainab was one of the very prominent teachers in Medina, even though that the women in Medina were very hesitant to come to her. But 25 years later, when Imam Ali alayhi salam made Kufa as the capital, Bibi Zainab and Abdullah bin Jafar, the husband and wife, migrated to Kufa with Imam Ali alayhi salam, and there the Kufan women came to Sayyidah Zainab and asked her to be their teacher. That you teach us now. We are ready to come and become educated while they were in Kufa. So the Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha, had knowledge and also had the ability to narrate and to dispense this knowledge. She married Abdullah bin Jafar, the son of Jafar al-Tayyar. Guys, and this is not about Sayyidah Zainab, but I just want to give you a little bit of background about Abdullah bin Jafar. That where he was born? He was born in Abyssinia. When the first migration occurred from Mecca to Abyssinia, when the Muslims sought refuge in Ethiopia, Jafar al-Tayyar and his wife Asma bin Humais, they went to Abyssinia, and they had 3 sons while they were in Abyssinia. One of them was Abdullah bin Jafar. When they came back, Jafar al-Tayyar, as we all know, was martyred, in one of the battles that were there. But it was Abdullah bin Jafar who was sought to be, Imam Ali basically selected Abdullah bin Jafar to be the husband of Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah. And they got married about 7 years after the passing away of Sayyidah Fatima. You know how many kids Sayyidah Zainab and Abdullah bin Jafar had? They had 5 children. 2 of them we all know, Aun and Muhammad, who were in Karbala. 3 of them, now some say there were 4 sons and 1 daughter, and only one narration that I read said that they had 3 sons and 2 daughters. So we don't know anything about the other sons. We know about Aun and Muhammad because they were in Karbala. But the daughter of Sayyidah Zainab, her name was Kulthum. After the passing away of Amirul Mu'mineen and the abduction, the giving up of the peace treaty that Imam Hassan alayhi salam signed with Muawiyah became the Khalifa at the time. Imam Hassan alayhi salam and the family basically moved out of Kufa and came and settled back in Medina. So Muawiyah, I'm saying this because we need to also understand that Sayyidah Zainab, while she was from the family of the Ahlul Bayt, Abdullah bin Jafar, who was from the family of Jafar, was also just as respectful of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam in this particular decision that I'm going to talk about. Muawiyah sends a letter to Marwan in Medina, and he says, I want the daughter of Abdullah bin Jafar, Kulthum, to be the wife of my son Yazid. There was a proposal that was sent by Muawiyah to Marwan for the hand of the daughter of Sayyidah Zainab, Kulthum. So when Marwan came to Abdullah bin Jafar, this is what I'm talking about, Abdullah bin Jafar said, this decision is not up to me, even though he was the father of Kulthum. Says, it's not my decision. Says, I'm going to relinquish this decision to Imam Hassan, alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, Muawiyah, in his letter to Marwan, he wrote a lot of things that this will, unite the Banu Umayyah and the Banu Hashim. This will. He actually was basically saying that it will be an honor for Sayyida Zainab and Abdullah bin Jafar and the daughter to have a son like Yazid, through whose wasila you could pray for rain. This is what Muawiyah was writing to Marwan, in his proposal. And he said also in this letter that I will pay whatever sum that Abdullah bin Jafar asks for the dowry for the hand of Kulthum. So Imam Hassan alayhi salam is given this notice of this proposal that was there. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam, obviously now, he's not the father, but the father gives the authority to Imam Hassan to make this decision. One narration says it was Imam Hussein, but most of them say it was Imam Hassan. Then Imam Hassan says, okay, he asks to have a big gathering of all of the people of the Banu Umayyah and all of the people of the Banu Hashim together in one place. And Marwan was also invited to this place. He was thinking what in his mind that Imam Hassan alayhi salam was going to announce this marriage or this engagement that was going to take place between Kulthum and Yazid bin Muawiyah. So all the people were seated, and Imam Hassan alayhi salam starts to answer each of these questions, that was in the proposal that Muawiyah has sent to Marwan bin Hakam, including he was saying that since when do the family of the Prophet, go for the dunya in making the right choices for their daughter? In other words, why would I be tempted to accept this proposal based on the amount of money that you are ready to give for the dowry of Kulthum? So that is not the way of the people of the Prophet. Then he basically said that it is the people of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam by whose wasila rain can be prayed upon, not the likes of people like Yazid ibn Muawiyah. And he goes on and on and on. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam immediately then announces the engagement of Kulthum to Qasim, who was the grandson, Qasim, who was the son of Muhammad, the son of Jafar Tayyar. And he announces that this is now the hand of Kulthum is going to be given to Qasim bin Muhammad bin Jafar Tayyar, and he makes this open and loud in front of the Umayyad and the Hashimite people. And when Muawiyah received this message, he was really angered by it, and history knows what he ended up doing with the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Now again here, this strong woman, Sayyida Zainab, that we all know her as a strong woman, left the decision about her daughter's hand to the men of the Banu Hashim and to her brother to make the decision on her behalf. It wasn't like, I need to be part of this decision. She did not interfere in those matters and in many other matters. Not that she was not qualified. And alima, ghayr muallima is always qualified to make any decisions, but it was not her role in that particular circumstance to do anything of that sort. Anyway, so we come to Sayyida Zainab alayhi salatu, and we come into the situation now when she is post Karbala, when she's taken as a prisoner, by the people of Yazid. Now, Sayyida Zainab, up until the day of Ashura, she was not making any decisions. Think about it. And even look at the position of Sayyida Zainab, that even when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was getting ready to depart to go to the battlefield for his last fight, one of the wasiyas that he gives to Sayyida Zainab is what? Remember me in your Salatul Layl. Don't forget to remember me in your Salatul Layl. And Ma'asum Imam is asking his sister, that don't forget me in Salatul Layl. And we have known, narrations have said that in Sham-e Ghariba, that night, that tragic night, after Sayyida Zainab had witnessed all of her family members massacred in front of her eyes, That night she stood up to Salatul Layl also. Her connection and her conviction and her absolute belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was unwavered even after she had witnessed what had happened. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm not going to go into the khutbah that Bibi Zainab delivered in the courts of Kufa and the courts of Sham, which shook the emperor, the king, the leader of that time, of the entire world, based on the, on the circumstances of history at that time, completely shook up Yazid. And to be able, as a woman, in shackles, after having been tortured, after having walked for miles and miles and miles, after having witnessed the death, the horrible death of her family members, her brothers, her nephews, and so on and so forth. And after witnessing the suffer and the torture of the people that were with her while they were traveling, did not lose any hope, did not collapse. She said this thing, and in Kufa she said, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila," that I did not see anything except for beauty. Just that one sentence, my brothers, dear brothers and sisters, philosophers have to sit and analyze, what did Sayyidah Zainab mean by this? It was not a simple statement. There is a lot of depth and meaning in that statement. And this woman, this great lady, stood up in front of Yazid and spoke what she spoke. Sayyidah Zainab, the strength of all women should lie not in these fights for rights and so on and so forth, should lie as we, as fathers and as brothers of our sisters and our daughters, when we are thinking about how to raise them, we don't raise them, like to be servants in a house of them. We raise them to be the proper role in a society so that they play a role in the functioning of creating a harmonious and functional society. The role of raising the children and the men and the women of the future. But knowledge and conviction, should be something that is a weapon of women. We need to empower women. But this empowerment of women through education, through conviction, through religion, should be a sword that sits inside their sheath and it comes out when it's needed. It's not a sheath that sits in there and it's sealed there forever. No. There is a time and there is a place for it. And Sayyidah Zainab Salamullahi alayha showed us when is the time to bring this sword out and to stand up against power and against injustice and stand up for people who are oppressed. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So where does this bring us down to, my dear brothers and sisters? For those people who say that women's roles are such that they don't need to be educated, or are such that they don't need to be informed, or are such that they should not be consulted in certain decisions, because even within these gender roles, women have expertise in certain things that they need to be consulted for, because men will not be able to make a right decision because they don't have the correct understanding of that particular thing, whatever it is. And women's input is absolutely necessary in that. Just as there are situations where a man's decision and a man's thought and a man's analysis is necessary to come to the right. Men and women have to work symbiotically. Men and women have to work together in order for to try and create a functional, harmonious, and a successful society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters, had the ability to create any kind of creation where the spreading of this creation in terms of multiplication could have occurred without pairing two things. But scientifically there may be a few things that you have where a multiplication can occur without pairs. But the vast majority of creation requires a pair, to come together to create more and to multiply more in any way, to multiply the world, especially in humanity. And this verse that I cited, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there is when it comes to how I view and the qualifications that are necessary to enter Jannah, okay? Man amala salihan. Just do good. Do amal saleh. Be with good intentions with whatever it is that you are doing. Have good mindset. Have the betterment of the society in your mind. And come together. That, amal saleh also means fighting oppression, fighting injustice. This is for both men and women. So brothers and sisters, understand today the Western society has our mind starting to think, very, very differently. And we need to put a kind of a brakes to it and sit down and wait and think that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to create equal rights in all aspects of everything, then why create differences in terms of the physical nature of things? He has equal rights yes, voting rights.